Welcome into TWMP Daily. This is the second one in 2 days. We have to call the shop steward here. We're working too hard. But we have big news. Jake Vogel announcing his Senate run. Interesting. Now we have a huge development, especially if you live in rural Missouri. Casey Wasser, my guest here, is now the official head of the Missouri Soybean Association. First of all, congratulations on an amazing opportunity that you have.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. And I was glad to hear Jake was here, too. I hope he's better at running percentage than he is at playing golf, but we'll find that out. Yeah.
It is the Missouri Soybean Association. I mean, we all know, even if I think there may be some people that aren't as plugged into politics that would see ag groups and they might name one or two other. I really believe the association's had the most influence over state policy in recent years is the Soybean Association.
Thank you. You know, the thing that a lot of people don't know, that I didn't know even before I started with Missouri Soybean, was that it is the biggest cash crop in the state of Missouri. I mean, we've got about 5.8 million acres of beans. The next closest is going to be your corn at about 3 million acres. And that's part of the diversity in our state. You know, you were just down in southeast Missouri and you got to see cotton and rice and peanuts and all these different things. But soybeans on a lot of acres down there. It's a good rotational crop. And so it means a lot for the state. And I think our policymakers have realized that. You know, made some reforms that are good for our members.
Well, they only realize it because you've got it in front of them.
Yeah.
Everybody's competing for that attention. The state has realized it because you've led the effort to put it in front of them. But before we get into the Soybean Association, we'll talk about you. Tell folks where you're from.
So I live in California, Missouri.
Pintos,
home of the Pintos. I'm on the school board there. I've done that for a little over a year.
Well, that's a labor of love, isn't it?
It's, I didn't know what I was getting into when I had some friends ask me to sign up for the school board. But I've loved it. I mean, my favorite day is when I get to sit up on stage and hand kids their diplomas that have come from all different kinds of backgrounds. Some, elevated themselves. Some struggled through it, but persevered and got that diploma. It's been great.
I assume the worst day, though, is when Coach LePage is heading down 50 to California from Blair Oaks.
We need to get back to the days of Caleb Jones in the late 90s when we
got to talk about this. Hold on.
Those Falcons.
We got to talk about this because you've got Caleb Jones, Alex Tuttle. You guys kind of have your own little mafia. You go to Hannah Embry that now is in the Senate.
Yeah.
You got to have your own California mafia going between you, Caleb, Alex. Drew Damp is a big shot in the governor's office.
That's right.
You got your own little crew going now.
We do. There's something about that California, Missouri that brings the best out of people. And you got to add in there Davin Altoff, now the number 2 at Missouri Farm Bureau.
Exactly.
So, maybe part of it's that blue blood Pinto thing, that great public education we get that takes us, I don't hear of a lot of Falcons doing a ton of great work now, but it's great people. I actually have two nephews that are going to be, one graduated from Blair Oaks, the other's going to Blair Oaks right now, great people. But we need to get back to the glory days of Pinto football, and I think we're going to get there.
Well, now that you're on the school board, I mean, if you're on the Blair Oaks school board, it's one, what have you done for Coach LePage lately? Ask not what Coach LePage can do for you, ask what you do for Coach LePage. And if the kids learn to read, that's a wonderful thing, too.
Right.
They're going to learn to tackle.
It'll be a great day in California, Missouri when LePage finally hangs it up. I can promise you that. I can guarantee you that.
He'll have a retirement dinner at Eldon and a Schoolie Osage. And all
That's right. I'll bake him a cake.
Ashland will definitely have a parade for him.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about your wife. I think there's some folks in and around state government that they might know your wife. They might not know she's your wife.
That's right. So my wife, Brooklyn, a lot of people don't know we were high school sweethearts, too. And so we both worked at the Department of Revenue when we had our son at a very young age, and we both had to go to work, house payment, car payment for me.
Oh, I knew that. I actually know your wife a little bit, and I didn't know this, but it makes total sense. If you didn't get her married early, she was probably going to move on to something higher, right?
She's the shining star of our relationship. There's no doubt about that. And she now works for Director Hadaway at DED.
A big job.
Probably 20-some tax credits for the state. She loves what she does. She has a great team. She has a lot of respect for the director. And
I like that, Michelle.
Yeah.
There's just, to me, I don't know what the director of DD actually does, if you want the truth. But in my mind, right, she goes to a corporation, right, and they're going to add a plant or they're going to expand or something, and she pitches Missouri. And to me, I find Michelle Hadaway a very impressive person. As a Missourian, I like the fact, if that's what she actually does, and I assume it's got to be a little bit of it, I like the fact she's carrying the ball for Missouri in that ring. Feel good about that.
We're lucky right now. To have a governor that is so pro-business, first-generation farmer. He's proven that he knows what it takes. You've got Michelle. You've got Missouri Partnerships, which is that sort of public-private arm that we invest in as an association that brings in business. But I mean, I've watched Michelle, and, you know, my wife talks about the great job she does. But, you know, we're hoping to build a crush plant in southeast Missouri so we can crush more beans and add value to that region. And they're a huge proponent of that. And as soon as a business calls, they have a plan together for that business. Here are all the things we can do to attract you to Missouri, and here's all the reasons why you should come here. And some of them is because we have great soybean farmers down there. But
Well, I've always just felt like the DED head, Joe Driscoll, right, was a really impressive guy. He's a Democrat, but, you know, to me, if Joe Driscoll is representing Missouri in a room, I like our chances.
Yep.
Michelle Hadaway, if she's representing Missouri in a room, I like Missouri's chances of being successful there. Let's talk about the kids, though. I assume you're on that school board. You got kids in there.
Yes, sir. So my oldest is my son, Bowden, and he is a senior, and he is a Pinto. He plays football. He played basketball for a while. Now it's just football and golf. So, you know, for him, the next move is going to, well, first we need to have a winning season, and then he's excited to get into golf. But he's going to go to Mizzou. So he's going to go to our land-grant university, and at this point, he thinks he wants to be an orthodontist. So we're going to see, but he's a great kid.
It's going to make my man Truman happy.
That's right.
It's also, if he's an orthodontist, going to get him paid, I think.
Well, you know, at some point, Moon Choi and the university continued to give to the soybean farmers, and I said, hey, we're going to give you my son, Bowden, to come up there and get a great education and continue that. And so and then my daughter, who, if anybody knows our family well, my son looks just like his mother, which good for him.
Lucky kid, yeah.
My daughter is a spitting image of me and acts just like me, which it creates a lot of controversy for her and I. We usually start each day yelling at each other, telling each other what they should be doing. But she's going to be a 7th grader. Loves sports. Doesn't matter what it is. She's been playing a lot of travel softball, travel basketball. A big shout out to Coach Clay Bethune in the Boone Little League. A lot of people don't know this. So my daughter Kaylin plays with a bunch of girls out of Boone County, and there's some others from small schools that and they're going into the ACES. But the Boone County Little League made it to the Regional World Series, and they lost their first game, and then they won. They battled back all the way to almost a championship game. So great people in Columbia, lots of good athletics, but they're doing a lot to invest in their girls, and so they brought Kaylin in, you know, small town California, Missouri, let her play with the big leaguers up there in Columbia. So super excited for that opportunity. But she's, you know, she doesn't know if she likes basketball phenom or travel softball more, but it's crazy how many people I've met from across the state just in travel sports. Jeff Philbrenner, I don't know if you know Jeff from Columbia. He's a great guy. Yeah, so it's neat getting to watch my kids grow up. I love that small town atmosphere, but especially for my daughter, getting to meet a bunch of girls from mid-Missouri and play different sports. It's been great.
The more people you meet, you know, our rival down in Neelyville was Twin Rivers, and I hated everyone at Twin Rivers. But when we got older, we'd be cracking a beer, and we always talked about, remember that time we played this game, whatever. It is an experience. I don't know any other way in life you get that except playing ball as a kid.
And I love sports. You know, I played everything growing up.
So when did you graduate high school?
I graduated.
I'm a St. Louis question you.
Yeah. So
you were a little bit after the Jones-Tuttle state championship.
Yes. Yeah.
God, I wouldn't want Alex Tuttle hunting me.
No.
If I was a running back, I don't know, man. I don't want this little gun tackling me.
So you've got it, though, at California high school, you've got a wall of people that are, you know, all state, everything. And then you've got 3 gentlemen, I believe, that were all Americans. And Alex Tuttle, there was a Cook and another one. And Alex is one of those, you know, all-American, played a little bit of pro ball. Now he's, you know, blocking and tackling in the Capitol. But, yeah.
I was in Burger House one time with Caleb. And, of course, I ended up seeing the picture. You know, he did the kind of cool thing where, oh, yeah, I forgot. I think, that might be Tuttle up there. And, of course, he's standing right by Tuttle. It was a slick, kind of humble-ish brag, but he knew what he was doing.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they had a good run.
Let's talk about the association was led for, I guess, the better part of a decade by Gary Wheeler.
Yep.
Gary moved on from there. But I always associated the two of you with a lot of the success of the organization, especially in the Capitol.
Yep. You know, Gary, I can remember when I got a call from a friend of mine, Ryan Rowden, who, you know, he happens
That's so big of you that you'll acknowledge being Rowden's friend publicly.
Well, you know, you gotta have some true friendships that date back in time, and he kind of introduced me to this idea of going to work for the Soybean Association. Even though he lobbied for American Petroleum Institute and we were kind of on opposite sides, he said, you should really take a look at this.
Isn't Ryan the best networker? Really, people should go to Ryan for career counseling because he's such a good guy.
Yeah.
But he is always thinking of other people, and when I really, you should think about this and this, and just a quality guy.
That's who introduced me to Gary. And so I can remember interviewing with Gary. In about 15 minutes, he offered me the job, and I said, well, let me talk to my wife, And so I called him back a couple days later and said I'd love to go to work for the soybean farmers. And so, he mentored me a lot over the last 10 years, and I saw some of the things. He's one of those guys that will push you and your organization as far as you're willing to go as a board. And with the research that we do up in Columbia, the investments he's made into infrastructure, those are going to have lasting impressions on the soybean farmer. And you saw that through his partnerships with the university and what he can do with public breeding.
I think Gary will have a tremendous legacy when people look back on the modernization of the Soybean Association and really other ag groups now, frankly, copying some of the successes that you and Gary had. Let's talk about the university for a second, though. We got Truman out here.
Yeah.
There was a time where it was, from the outside looking in, it almost looked contentious between the major ag groups doing the research and the university. There was just drama and problems. It feels like today there's a lot less of that.
There is. So with my background being in policy, when I took over as chief operating officer about 3 years ago, one of the things that I dove deep into was the relationship that the soybean farmers have with their land-grant university. And a lot of people don't know we spend a couple $1 million a year with the University of Missouri doing agronomic research. And I think we're in a positive spot right now for a lot of different reasons. One is, Moon Choi, I think, is one of the best at providing a clear mission and vision for the university and understanding who their partners are and who helps drive their mission forward. And he knows that's soybean farmers. But also they listen to us. When you were in Southeast Missouri with me, a week ago, and you look at the Delta Fisher Research Center, and you look at the other research centers across the state, and you look at what their researchers are doing, they understand they have to retain top talent. And they listen. They'll create boards that are made up of farmers to help advise them and move it forward. There is going to be some huge announcements coming out of the University of Missouri in partnership with soybean farmers about exactly how that investment is returning to the farms in Missouri. And
it just feels like things at that university are going great.
They are.
It just feels like it's a positive time there. And you and I remember that it hasn't always been. I'd say as a guy that is in and around government relations, the anthem-MU fight, I don't understand it. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I'll say this. There was a time that we could probably both remember pretty easily that even against an insurance company, this is an industry where they're shooting their executives in the street, MU would have been the bad guy.
Yep.
They if you want to see the tangible benefits, there's some folks at the university, like every group, maybe a little more liberal side that would nitpick Moon a little bit, but the fact is, at MU Health, they got a better deal, in my opinion, because Moon Choi has that campus running well.
Yep.
The end result was much more favorable to MU Health, and the only way they were able to fight that fight was, but our man here is just killing it.
Yep.
And Moon, he has credibility that a president hasn't had in a very, very long time, and you can't roll the university anymore. Matter of fact, the university can roll you if they want to.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And, when you look at the university and in the agriculture industry, we have to work hand in hand through their extension and through all the things that they do. And Moon Choi has always been that transparent leader. I can remember when Gary resigned in April, Moon Choi was one of the first people to call me. And he said, I want you to know how important our partnership is, how important our relationship is, and how much we value our soybean farmers. So let me know what I can do for you. I think that speaks to his character.
It speaks to his character, but also, a lot of academics, not that they're bad people or anything, but it wouldn't occur to them to make that proactive move. There is an ability, to be a doctor in whatever sociology or numbers or whatever he is.
Right.
I don't actually know. He's not like, if you get sick, call 911. Don't. He's not that kind of doctor. But to be a high-level academic and to have the instinctual people skills, like to work the room at the Fair Foundation the other night. He's a very impressive guy. I always tell curators when they're coming up for confirmation, just don't lose Moon and you'll probably be fine. Everything else can kind of work out. But if you lose Moon, whoever you hire is screwed.
I agree 100%. He's fantastic. They're doing a great job.
You mentioned background in policy. Tell me how you go from California, Missouri, marrying your high school sweetheart, to where you are today. Give me that track.
So, and it's a long story, one I don't tell often, but I'll share with you. So, I was 20 when our son was born. And so my wife and I both immediately went to work. We both took jobs at the Department of Revenue, I think, making $20,000 a year. And I'll throw a few names out that that have helped me along the way, just like anybody
like
that
all
builds
of us,
relationships. So that was about 9 months in, and I can remember applying for a job. It was a supervisor at the department. Nobody wants these jobs. I mean, I was filling out title work and figured out what it would take to license a vehicle and register a vehicle. And I would stay late and I would work hard. And I would have people say, why are you staying late? Why are you working hard? Nobody recognizes hard work around here. And I said, I'm here. I'm going to do the best I can do at the job I've got at the moment. And I didn't get that job 9 months in, that promotion, but a guy named Steve Allers. Yep. So Steve was a manager at the department, and he brought me in and said, I'm not giving you this job, not because I don't think you deserve it, but there is somebody that is in line for that job that's very, very good, and I have no doubt that you're going to get one before long. And so I took that to heart, and I kept applying, and I kept working. And so the next thing you know, I got a couple different jobs.
See, I think it's so important to give shout-outs to guys like the Steve that you just mentioned, because, I mean, that's – people have an impression, especially Republicans, of state employees being, negative.
Yep.
But that guy taking time to pour into you, doing his job well, I mean, to me, those guys should get the shout-outs.
Yeah.
Because look where you are today.
Well, that's right. And he put some confidence in me that I probably didn't have. And so I took a couple different roles, and then I remember listening to a guy on the phone. I'm up in the division director's office at this time, and I got a little office, and I got a window, and I can see the Capitol. And I always thought, I wonder what they do over there. That's very interesting to me. And so I went to the director, and I said, hey, I would love an opportunity to go over there in the Capitol and serve you in whatever role it might be. I said, I've listened to this guy on the phone. I think he's good, but I think I can do better. And next thing you know, a couple of months later, I'm over there in the Capitol, and I'm figuring out how this process works. And when you work for the Department of Revenue, Motor Vehicle Driver Licensing Division, one of the things you have to make sure is you're compliant with federal law, so CDL, because that draws down federal match dollars for the Department of Transportation. So a guy named Dave Schatz is the chair of transportation in the House.
Wish we had a golden light.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fantastic right now. And I hope he's spending all kinds of time with those grandbabies. But he, I couldn't figure out how to get to him, right? I'm just a guy at the Department of Revenue, and that's when I realized the relationships with the LAs matter. Yep. And so the lady that worked for him got me in, and then Dave and I created a relationship. And then I remember hanging out in Caleb Jones' office, talking to him about DUI law.
Let me ask you this. Back then, I remember Representative Dave Schatz.
Yeah.
Great dude. Everybody loved him.
Yes.
I honestly, if you'd asked me then, this guy told me he's got to be pro tem of the Senate for 2 terms, I'd have been like, I don't know about that.
Not a chance.
And I wouldn't have meant it negatively. I probably would have picked some other folks. But what a great job he did.
He did a fantastic job. And I think he was one of those guys that it just made sense for him because you could tell he didn't want that role. He knew he needed to do it for the betterment of Missouri, and I think that that's what makes good leaders, and Dave Schatz was one of those guys. And I can remember Mike Kehoe as a senator and, auto dealer background. I worked closely with him. And so ultimately I get this call from Governor Jay Nixon's office, and it was Jason Zamkin. And Jason is the legislative director, so he oversaw all the departments and their legislation.
He's just killing it as a lobbyist now.
Great guy, very smart, learned from some great people, he being one of them. And he gave me a call, would you like to serve as the legislative director for the Department of Revenue? And so this is probably 2014. I said, would I? I said, absolutely, let's do it. And you got to remember, we've got a Republican supermajority. You have a Democrat governor. And they were all about passing tax reform. It was all about real ID. And I took
all about harassing the administration also.
100%. And I told Jason, I said, I would love the opportunity. And so, Andrew Koenig was Ways and Means chair in the House. I dealt with a lot of interesting personalities and learned a lot. But that's what set me up ultimately, creating relationships with all those different people to get the call for the Soybean Association. And I had that question of, do you go to work potentially for Eric Greitens, or do you make the jump to soybeans? And Scott, I made the right call, and I took a job with Missouri soybeans. There's no question about it. And so that was the background of how I got into Missouri soy.
That is, I was so glad you were giving a couple of shout outs. A lot of people know Jason Zam because now he's very successful lobbyist here. But some of those folks in the bureaucracy, they're not all what some folks will portray them to be. Yeah. There's problems with every bureaucracy, there's no question, but there are some really good people that give encouragement and breaks and some mentorship along the way to some of the most successful people in this town. And I think it's awesome to give those folks shout outs because that's what people copy success. Yeah. And that's awesome.
Well, I can remember, so Trish Vincent, who's now the director of revenue, had a short stint where Nixon brought her in and she was helping advise him at the Department of Revenue. And then one of my favorite things to do, I had a lot of different directors because it was that turnover battle, right, where the Senate didn't want to confirm. I had John Molenkamp, Nia Ray, who was probably one of my favorites. She came over from the Department of Labor, and they started something that I enjoyed, which anytime a new hire, you got to remember thousands of employees at the Department of Revenue, and you're up on the 6th floor. Most of them work on the 3rd and 4th floor. They would bring new hires up, and as a group, it would be the director and myself and maybe the deputy, and we would talk to these new hires. And I would always tell the story about, 8 years ago, I started at the department at the lowest level job you can have. And I said, don't let anybody tell you that in government they don't recognize hard work, because people fall into that trap. And I would always tell that same story, and I still tell that, whether it's,
a cool story.
Bailey Schneider, soybean intern, she's the state fair queen, and we rode down and back to Southeast Missouri, and she was like, what advice do you have for me? And sky's the limit for her and her family and what she's achieving. But I told her, I said, hard work always wins. That's all that matters. And I think, honestly, that's how I got to where I am today. It's no flashy title or background or anything. It's just hard work and the people that help you along the way. So
I love that story. That is hard work. John Watson, right, who was Governor Nixon's chief of staff, and I would say one of the most universally respected men that I knew in Jeff City. He passed away now. He started off taking notes for the AG's office, and his note, most folks that had that job would write the basics. I'm sure they did a good job. His notes would be multiple pages and backgrounds on legislators, and people would be like, what is this kid from Kennett doing? Why is there 8 pages on this Judiciary Committee hearing? And that's how he got to start working his way up, and he left state government as the chief of staff to the governor. And I always remembered that. I mean, because it's not that anybody else was being lazy. It's just that he took the job and crushed it. Yeah. And when he crushed that job, they give him another job. And he crushed that job. And before you know it, he's chief of staff to the governor of the state of Missouri. Yeah. All right, first of all, I got to tell you, speaking down the boot hill, check this out. My Sykes and JC Boot Hill Road.
Those are almost Pinto colors. That's close. I like it.
It is Pinto-ish. I will give you that. Look at that they give you when you go down there. All sorts of stuff for the sun.
Look at this.
That Marcy Lawson, shout out to her down at the Sykes Chamber. She's great. We got the rice and what I think is the cotton.
Yeah, look at that.
Gosh, you remember people, that is a tough thing to pick. What a great thing when they invented the cotton picker.
Absolutely. Well, those guys are struggling right now. The prices are tough for everybody in the row crop side.
Now they have a thing where you can pick New Madrid, Missouri on the Mississippi. I like that.
That is awesome.
Thought that Boot Hill Rodeo was fun. Judge Dolan, I've got it. I also got that one down there. What a great guy. It's just from Southeast Missouri, it's just great to have a person like that representing the area. I always tell people, judges are either the best or the worst. I've very seldom found a mediocre legislator as a judge. They're either 10 on 10 or it's just bad. They just know everything. And he is the 10 on 10 guy. It is great that our part of the state has someone like him representing us. Let's talk about some of the issues right now the association's facing, and maybe Missouri agriculture in general.
I will say, and this might seem a little cynical right off the bat, but I will tell you, for my members specifically, those that are not a diversified operation, that don't have cattle at all-time high prices right now, our guys are struggling. So when I look at the short term, and I've talked to farmers all across the state, they need answers in the short term. And so one of the things that we're going to be working on immediately is trying to find a solution to those economic problems that they have, hoping that we get some long-term benefit from some trade deals, the one big beautiful bill that Congressman Smith put together. There's obvious tax advantages in that. There's some improvements to the farm bill. But when we're still hung over from extremely high inflation and farmers have to pay what price is offered to them for those products to put in the ground, and they have no say on the price of the beans that they deliver at the elevator, we are in a very, very tough economic time to be a soybean farmer, a cotton farmer, a rice farmer, a corn farmer. It costs a lot to farm today. So in the immediate term, we've had some meeting with Secretary Rawlins. We're very hopeful that our own Richard Fordyce gets the official vote, to be the undersecretary
of FPAC. What a big deal for Missouri.
That's huge. I don't think people understand how important that is. And kudos to the Trump administration and Secretary Rawlins for picking somebody that actually farms to serve in that role, that can relate to the struggles that our members are going through.
And now walk me through this, though. The tariffs right now.
Yep.
That hit soybean farmers hard, right?
It did. Well, here's what's interesting, Scott. So, July 6th of 2018 is a date I'll always remember. That's Trump's first administration whenever he put a 25% tariff on China. And they immediately retaliated with a 25% tariff on U.S. soy. At that time, China was very dependent on the U.S. soybean farmer. Since then, they've rerouted a lot of their purchasing power to South America, who is now the #1 producer of soy in the world. So China isn't reliant on the U.S. soybean farmers. So these tariffs and these negotiations that we've seen this go around aren't having the same direct effect on soybean prices. It's important. It's hurt a little bit. There's more to gain long term now than what we lost the first time. So when we talk with Secretary Rollins or any of our congressional offices, Senator Hawley, Senator Schmidt, they said, okay, well, is this trade aid like Trump did the first time? I said, no, it's not. This is a hangover from extremely high inflation. And yes, some of it's trade loss that we're going to get back in the years to come, but it's not like the first round. There's a lot of other economic factors of why it's tough right now. But, we're going to find those solutions, and hopefully we can get some relief come this fall. And then we'll be able to get some new markets opened up in the future. But it's
so
tough
that's the
right
goal
now.
is you offset. China found new suppliers. You're looking for new markets.
Yep. And it's interesting because for the last 4 years, trade was not a priority. It simply hasn't been at the federal level. And Trump's making it a priority. I remember when
It was immigration.
Well, exactly. And I'd sit down with Congressman Jason Smith, and he'd say, how can I help you on trade? And it's like, well, let's work together to find that. Whether it's opening up, new opportunities in Africa and Egypt, knocking down non-tariff trade barriers in the European Union. Congressman Smith was talking about poultry and pork consumption in other areas. Like Indonesia has 10 million people, but buys 5 times more poultry than the entire European Union, and their purchasing power is 200 to 1. Well, why is that? And at the end of the day, I feed a lot of my soybean meal that my members make to the poultry and pork industry. So we need to raise all these tides to help these soybean farmers get out of this. And we're going to get there. It's going to take time. But in the immediate term, you're asking me right here, right now, in the immediate term, we've got to find a solution to this economic disaster that our members are in. And there's a lot of long-term things that we're looking at on the association side.
What is the future of the organization? And the organization is the soybean farmers of the state.
The future is going to continue to be looking at ways to make sure farmers have the freedom to operate and making them as profitable as they can be. I can remember whether we're bringing in HRCC new recruits to the soybean office, and I'm talking to a bunch of possibly legislators. I say the only reason that I'm in your office or a member of our association is in your office is because there is a piece of legislation that impacts the bottom line of a soybean farmer. We're not going to be in here talking to you generally about social issues. We're not going to be in here talking to you about public education issues. We're talking about what improves or hurts the price of soybeans, because at the end of the day, it's a business. Every one of my members is a small business owner, Scott, and they have to make money. They want to pass on a profitable operation to the next generation. So our guiding star is making sure that we're doing what we can to make them profitable and continue to sustain what they've built.
It is. It's a great job. It's a cool job. I love your building.
Thank you.
But really, it is an amazing responsibility.
It
I
is.
mean, you've been entrusted with the lives of so many Missouri farmers and so many folks that like dinner.
Yeah.
It is always bizarre to me how the city people want to tell you all this advice about how to farm. They've never grown a house plant, but they just won't eat dinner and say thank you.
That's
sometimes weird.
You're right. Well, and so we're gonna host 20 to 30 Democrats on August 24th, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
They're going to go to Robert Alper's farm in Cooper County, who's a great man, by the way. Has a great family operation there in Prairie Home. And so they're going to go tour his operation. Then we're going to bring him to the Farm for Soy Innovation in Columbia, where we got a lot of great things. So we're going to do a little farm to table. And we just want to explain to them, here's all the things that we're struggling with. Here's the things we're doing really well. Here's why modern farming practices using certain chemicals to do conservation practices are good for the soil. So you got to tell that story, because every year people are getting further and further disconnected from the farm, and we don't get that opportunity to tell that story.
Here's to me, the challenge is this. When I look at the legislature, I don't see Democrats attacking rural Missouri.
Yeah.
I see suburban Republicans attacking rural Missouri.
Yes, sir.
The world is changing, which is why I think it's so important that you're making those outreaches. I watched Mike Deering do the same thing. When I look at the enemies of Missouri agriculture, they're not Democrats anymore.
I agree. It's, I can remember, I'm lucky to work for a board of 16 farmers on the association side, which is not the checkoff in the QSSB, which is prohibited from doing any lobbying. On the association side, I can remember about 6 years ago, they asked the question, should we start getting involved in primaries? Because if I don't get involved, in these Republican primaries, I don't necessarily get a voice on who's going to be representing
You're
me.
either involved in primaries in the state or you don't matter.
You know, and that was kind of what so they gave me the ability to put plans together to evaluate. I mean, take what's going on right now at the state fair. There is not a better man running for the Senate in 2026 than who represents the state fair, right? Brad Pollitt. And he's a guy that represents Missouri values, our rural values, wants to understand the issues that we've got. I mean, he's got a public education background. He understands agriculture. He has so much to bring to the Missouri Senate. And I'm not speaking negatively about his opponent, but what I'm telling you is that our board wants to support people that support Missouri agriculture and support our farmers, and that's what we're going to do.
Let's say you like his opponent. If you're not involved in this primary, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're an association, you're not involved in primaries, you just don't matter. It just doesn't matter.
That's right.
And Farm Bureau, kudos to them.
Yep.
You guys started this, and like I said, sometimes I've watched some of the other ag groups are replicating some of the success you've had. They got involved and supported Kehoe very earlier than, and in a different way they'd ever done before. I think it paid off handsomely.
I'm glad you brought up Farm Bureau because when you look at the ag groups in its totality, you look at the commodity groups. You got soybean, corn, rice, cotton. But you got your pork, poultry, cattlemen. Farm Bureau is that umbrella organization that's always going to have the largest voice on behalf of agriculture.
It's oldest.
And we need to stick together. We all have to work together because, to your point, the direction that we've been going recently in the division that we've seen in the Missouri Senate, luckily this past session was a little better, but there's a lot of contributing factors to that. But agriculture has to stick together.
I think you have one more good year of that.
I'm a little nervous about what the future holds. Now is a very important time for Farm Bureau to lead, for us all to work together and make sure that we're helping.
I think part of it is they needed to lead.
Yeah.
And I give Garrett a lot of credit.
Yep.
There's been some innovations, but nothing like victory to make everything better. And he brought home a victory in Kehoe. That was a gutsy decision. It was a change. And, at Farm Bureau, we don't change things very often. But I thought it was very innovative how you loaned some support to their health insurance bill.
Yep.
I think it's a prototype of a lot of things. To me, that feels like step one.
Yep.
And there's other ways to look in the future at that. But I always tell folks, if you're in this town, anywhere, seriously, if you're in this town, folks, Missouri, can I just talk to you for a second? If you're in this town from way out by the correctional facility of the National Guard all the way over to somewhere near Apache Flats where they play softball, the Republicans will tell you the supermajority. They love to tell you we have a super majority. Pull this thing off CDS. What I like to remind them is there's a supermajority of your supermajority, and it's rural Missouri. And sometimes I think we were very guilty of not pounding the desk. And trust me, the city people, the suburban people, good Lord, they drink that Starbucks, they have that skunk striper in their hair, they drive those Priuses. They're heard. You will not be able to leave without them talking. Sometimes we don't always push ourselves out there as much. And I think the group, frankly, for the last decade, who has led the charge in keeping that rural Missouri interest out there has been the Soybean. You've been the most aggressive advocate for rural Missouri in this state. But let's talk about that staff. You have a terrific staff out there.
Yep. I'm extremely blessed to have worked with many of these folks for the last few years. And then if we just start on this policy theme, Ben Travlos. I know folks at Missouri Farm Bureau were very sad to see that Ben was coming to work for the soybean farmers.
Quality guy.
One of the best. And he's got a great, beautiful family that he's growing. He's working extremely hard. So Ben has taken over our policy shop, and he's going to continue to elevate it, working with our policy team and spending those dollars on good elections like Brad Pollitt. We've got Samantha Turner, who's, she bleeds black and gold. She's got a rich history.
She's great.
At Norburn, it was just the Norburn Soybean Festival. A lot of her family from up there. She's doing a great job with our magazine and communicating with people.
She is good.
Because one of the hardest things to do is to tell that story, and her whole team's doing a great job of that. What a lot of people also don't know we're doing, Missouri Soybeans is a very complex organization, and we've taken on a task of commercializing new varieties of soybeans. So we've got a new soybean cyst nematode resistant technology that's about to come out in our partnership with the university. So we've got folks like Brian Stovall, who's director of commercialization. Blake Barlow used to work for Bayer. He's heading up our entire public breeding program. So, I could go on and on from conservation to research to communications to policy, but we've got folks in the right spots.
That is one thing sometimes you come to some of these jobs and you haven't worked there with them. You'll come to and either the staff doesn't get along, or it's just frankly not a bunch of A players.
That's right.
You're coming into this job at a great time with a tremendous team that you already are familiar with.
Yep.
That's got to be a big leg up.
It is. It's fantastic because, Scott, I mean, you know me. I've known you for a long time. I don't want to get into their day-to-day stuff. They know exactly what they need to do. I'm a guy that likes to follow a strategic plan, implement it, and my goal is to be out there creating meaningful relationships, making sure that the legislators know who we are. I want our farmers to know what we're doing. I want them to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, Casey, you're wrong on this. We need to be moving this direction, or this is what you need to be doing in the legislature. So I want to be the voice for the things that they do so well, step out of their way and let them implement those things. And so we're going to do that. Missouri has a lot to offer between the river, the rail, our road system, all these headquarters, Bungie, Bayer. I mean, you look at the ADM, Cargill, Tyson, all of these things in Missouri, and there's so much untapped potential. My goal is to go out there and make those relationships and understand how we can elevate that. But blessed to have a great team.
And there's a member of your team. I don't know if you mentioned
Matt Amick.
Matt Amick,
Okay.
Great. But I have to say, the roast is coming up on September 8th. You all have been so kind to host us. Gosh, we maybe do it. This may be 4 or 5 years.
It's a great event.
I know when we started this, your son was in junior high football because they played on Monday nights.
Yes, that's right.
So I know it's at least 5 years we've been doing this.
Yeah.
But Bailey Siegel, wonderful, puts up with us, which is no small thing.
Yes.
We'll have the roast out there September 8th. We're roasting Cinder O'Laughlin, so it's going to be fun. But I always have to give a shout out to Bailey's the one that can we borrow an extension cord? Or usually it's, Bailey, I'm sorry, we screwed this up.
Yeah.
It's usually how this goes.
She's the hammer at the office. One of the first things I did when they named me interim CEO back around May 1st, I promoted Bailey within the organization because she has so much potential to lead the organization. She's now our director of operations and engagement. And let me tell you what, when you do something wrong, she lets you know, but she lets you know how to
I'm
fix
a little
it.
afraid of her if you want the truth.
That's when you need somebody like that in your corner
I agree
that
with
holds you
that.
accountable, and she's the one that holds me accountable for sure.
Yeah, it's Miss Bailey to me, for me. But
right.
hey, seriously, man, I am so happy. It's so nice in this line of work to see good things happen to good people.
Thank you.
You have an amazing thing you've been entrusted with, and I'm so excited to see where you take the association.
I appreciate it, Scott. I just look forward to do it. I am blessed to have 29 board members that have helped me along this process, that are willing to give me the opportunity to serve them, and I'm very excited to do it.
I got to tell you, you know how I got this?
No.
So one time you were having a board meeting, and I stole. You have the building's terrific. It's a beautiful asset, but it's also nice when they said I stole something off the thing, and you all, like everybody, was in this board meeting, right? And nobody was outside in the lobby. So I stole this and brought it back here and took a picture of it. And Gary said, "You have to bring that back."
Oh, that's
and
hilarious.
then he said, "But I want to see this on your desk," and he traded it out with that thing. So I actually got that through larceny, but it's worked out well.
That's fantastic. I would love to tell a story of larceny of a board member of mine. Actually, I will tell one quick story. So, Southeast Missouri thing. There's this guy named Johnny Hunter, and he made a very interesting relationship with Tracy McCreary, who I love, great senator.
Oh, yes, she is.
And he was up at the country club, and he was telling stories about building Castor River Farms. He sells rice. And he said, I may have stole a little something from the Soybean Association that I thought was very unique, because he said, I like to have things that are unique because it's a conversation starter. So he's got some memorabilia stolen from the Center for Soy too. So if anybody else is thinking about it, come through me first. But it's a great play on you. Yeah.
He traded up. This was a particularly, and I was just kidding with him. I was going to hold it hostage. But he ended up, later that day, I had this brought to me and said, we'll trade out, but I want this on your desk on the show. I was like, well, 100% honored to have it. Casey, seriously, thank you, man. I'm so happy for you. It's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate you letting me come on and talk about our issues.
The roast will be the 8th, 6 o'clock. We're going to roast Cindy O'Laughlin for a Center for Women in Moberly, Missouri, is our charity this year. And I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon, about 1 to 5 on the Midway. Several folks will be in town. We're going to set up right there by the CFM booth, and we'll be coming to you with all sorts of folks. I think Denny Haas is coming by. I think Mark Alford, Jason Smith, Eric Schmidt's coming by. We'll have a good time. And then, of course, if you're at the State Fair tomorrow night, I'll be at the Budweiser tent probably for as long as I can stand up.
There you go.
Then Casey Burns will make me go home. So we'll see you there tomorrow night at the State Fair. Then, of course, the ham breakfast. What a great Missouri tradition.
Absolutely.
Put a little water on that ham. You can get it down. Always a fun time. Governor Keogh's first one will be neat. So thank you, guys. And we will see you for a special Sunday edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. We have a group of Kid Bond staffers we're going to honor at the State Fair. Thanks a lot.